Hello again, everyone. Sorry it's been a while since my last bulletin. I was away in Spain during the summer to try to make an update on my Spain is Dying series when I was overtaken by events. Please allow me to try to explain. Since before the Euro's very first day in existence, I've been in no doubt whatsoever that it would one day fail, and fail spectacularly. Even during the Euro's good times, back in the early to mid-2000s, I never wavered in this belief one iota. The only uncertainty in my mind was the timing, when exactly this monstrosity would fall apart. I'm still not sure exactly when we will be able to pronounce the Euro as we know it finally dead. I only know that that day is certainly coming, and every day brings this final chapter closer. So at the height of the Spanish summer, with temperatures pushing uncomfortably beyond 33 degrees, I had a sudden epiphany moment which ran something like this. How insane would it have to be for me, of all people, when I have long predicted and been convinced of the demise of the single currency, to be caught out by its collapse, be financially ruined in the process? What kind of fool is able to see the future and warn everyone else about it, yet takes no action to protect himself from what he knows is sure to come? At the point of that sudden realisation, I knew I had to get out, and it couldn't be put off for a moment longer. Since early April, I had been diligently graphing the bond yields of Euro member countries which I felt were most at risk from economic collapse. For nearly 4 months, the resulting chart was regular and smooth, with each yield steadily maintaining its differential with respect to its peers. All looked orderly until the 4th of July, whereupon the yields for Italy and Spain started to climb at a rate that signalled that something had changed, and all was not well. On July the 11th, there was a sudden and significant hike in bond yields of these two countries, something in the order of 50 basis points in one day. This is what initially set the alarm bells ringing. Prior to this sudden shift in sentiment, Spanish yields had been consistently higher than Italian yields by around 0.5%. Now suddenly on the 11th of July, this differential began to close. There then followed further erratic movements in bond prices through to the 8th of August, when the ECB stepped in and began aggressively buying Spanish and Italian paper, driving yields on both dramatically back down to around 4.25%. They had broadly converged with one another. Then on the 5th of September, Italian bonds began for the first time to yield more than Spanish. A further deepening of negative sentiment towards Italian paper in particular accounted for this. By the 9th of September, Italian yields were firmly established as higher than Spanish, and from that day to this they have remained higher, and the differential between them has continued to grow. The lines on this graph over at the period under discussion bear a remarkable similarity to those of a seismograph. There was a metaphorical earthquake on July 11th, followed by a couple of aftershocks through to August 8th. In the middle of this period, I had the epiphany moment I described above, and came to the conclusion that I had to return to Germany to sell up everything and get the hell out of Euroland for the foreseeable future. So this is why I've been silent these last few months. I'm sure even the most devoted of my subscribers will understand and sympathise with my view that when the boat starts to sink, you don't sit around writing about it. Your first priority is to get yourself off and far enough away to avoid getting sucked under by it. I'm not a professional journalist and don't get paid for these reports I file. I would not seek to get paid for them anyway, it's never been what I'm about. So everything had to be pushed aside to enable me to get away as fast as I could from Spain and begin the selling up process. My YouTube channel was an inevitable casualty of this rush to self-preservation, I regret to say. But on the plus side, I can now reveal that I'm more than 50% done with this urgent task, and I'm holding no more than a couple of thousand in cash euros, which it wouldn't break me to lose if the single currency were to hit the rocks tomorrow. This sets my mind to a greater degree at rest and gives me the chance to update you all on where I've been and what I've been doing. And now it's the first week in November, and I can see with the benefit of hindsight that I did the right thing by cutting my Spanish sojourn short. Things have only got steadily worse in the meantime, so my worst fears at the time of writing this appear to be being borne out. I can only tell you truthfully that I will not be sorry to leave Euroland, which I think has become, as everybody can see, something of a mental asylum. The pronouncements I've heard over the last week or so from the likes of Merkel, Sarkozy, Trichet and Berlusconi make me shudder. It's so clear that they have no idea how to handle this crisis, which is of their own making. Sarkozy has repeated yet again that the euro will not be allowed to fail. One has to wonder at the mental state of a person who says such a thing. God only knows how much good money will have to be thrown after bad in a futile attempt to prop up this shambles before the whole thing inevitably collapses, and by that time takes half of Europe with it. And over in Italy, you have an ageing clown in charge who is being expected to deliver on the most swingeing series of austerity measures the country has seen in 60 years. Even a man half his age would struggle to find the strength and resolve to push it through. Yet this elderly playboy is refusing to step aside for someone younger and more competent, and presumably regards standing down as akin to an admission of sexual impotence. And don't even start me on George Papandreou. So basically, you won't be hearing anything much from the Economy Watch for many weeks to come as I dispose of my remaining Eurozone interests. No matter how much more serious things get, I'll be unable to report on them, so please don't take my absence as a tacit sign that there's nothing to worry about in Euroland, because in truth the situation here is deteriorating with every passing week. There may be short-term fixes from time to time, but they're merely patches that don't address the underlying structural and systemic faults with the single currency, which simply cannot be remedied by any number of emergency meetings. The people in power should be engaging not in pointless attempts to shore things up, but with the overriding objective of finding an orderly way to dismantle the currency time bomb they created back at the turn of the century. But every utterance I've so far heard from them indicates that they are still firmly in denial. This attitude, if it doesn't change in short order, is going to cripple the continent and consign a generation of European taxpayers, savers, and job hunters of all ages to a level of poverty not seen since the end of World War II. I somehow doubt that I will be alone in relocating outside of the Eurozone. Although I myself have given up altogether on Europe, there will be others who, though they still have some vestigial faith in the project, still await the clarity and economic stability required for them to commit to investing in the continent. All the time there is uncertainty and volatility, however, investment will be on hold. No new money will be made available to expand existing businesses in Euroland, nor found new ones, with the result that the region's already damaged competitiveness will fall further behind still in the coming years. This is why we see corporations sitting on their cash reserves until things settle down again. But if things don't return to stability in the short term, all that money may well find a new home in emerging markets, permanently depriving Europe of the investment it desperately needs, but no longer deserves, and if the truth be known, hasn't deserved for quite a while now. In conclusion, from what we have seen over the last 2 years, and the last few months in particular, it remains clear that there are no easy solutions to this crisis, which I and many others predict will rumble on and on and on until a calamitous tipping point occurs and harsh reality bites. I personally will be miles away by that time and outside the fallout zone. Hopefully, if you are listening to this and have any sense, you'll be taking action to ensure that you and your family aren't caught out by the coming collapse either. Remember, the worst thing you can do is nothing. The worst thing you can do is hope that this awful mess will somehow all sort itself out, because it won't. Don't expect the politicians to fix it either. They've already proved they can't. In summary, don't be caught in the collapse. Get out while you still can.